You are listening to The Catholic Wire.
Got down on my knees and prayed and said, right, God, this is it. I don't know what else to do. And I'm lost. Then he's telling me what he believed. And I says, well, you can't believe that because I believe that and I'm Mormon and you're not Mormon dressed like that. And he said, no, I'm Catholic. I woke up and he never gave me his name. And I woke up and I said, woke my husband up and said to him, it's Mel Gibson's priest. Like, overwhelming. I just don't even know how to describe it. Feeling of I'm home. Just, this is it. This is it. And my husband and I knelt down, and the two of us actually had like tears streaming down our faces. What's wrong? What's wrong? Are you Catholic? And I said, no, I'm Mormon and I'm lost.
In the last decades, many Catholics have experienced terrible moral persecution. Their faith, their traditions, were taken away from the churches. Many have lived for many years ignorant of the deprivation they suffered. Some are still going through that painful and at once beautiful process of rediscovering the Catholic faith. For the encouragement of those still in that journey, faithful Catholics have shared with us their challenges, trials, and blessings. This is the story of their journey back to the faith. Hello and welcome to another episode of Back to the Faith. In the last episode we began this story where we met Margaret from Scotland. She still lives in Scotland and she and her family were all Mormons for a long time. Little by little she started realizing that the Mormon religion was not the true one. There were many questions that were not being answered, and she started asking God for guidance. She could not receive advice from anywhere, but she ended up having a dream where she was advised to go seek for a church in the mountain. As time progressed, she could not realize what exactly was it that God was asking of her. She and her husband went to a Novus Ordo Catholic church, to a modernist Catholic church, and they did not like what they saw there. After that experience, she kept praying to God and asking for guidance, and in this next episode, we will see what happened afterwards. I certainly advise you, if you haven't heard the last one, go and check it out, because that will explain a lot of what you will hear on this one. Let's continue with Margaret's story.
So I came home that night, and I got on my knees. I was crying, because in my whole married life, my husband and I was going to say we'd never disagreed about anything. I think he would kind of like that. We've had loads of disagreements, but we've never disagreed. We've never, ever disagreed on the big things. Never. Like, nothing like that. So I was in just a state of absolute distress, absolute distress. So I literally that night spent my whole night on my knees praying, crying, praying, begging God, and just saying, look, actually, I feel like I must be thick as mince here, God. In other words, I must be really stupid. I'm so stupid. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. I don't know where this church is. I don't know what you mean. You're actually going to have to slap me in the face with it or something, because I don't know. And my children are all asking me what we're going to do. They want to go to church. They actually wanted to go to church. We had raised them that way. And here we were having this crisis of faith. They'd only not been to church 1 week, and it was a nightmare for them. And so then, I don't know what happened, just in the morning, it was just like I got up and my face was a mess, and my husband was like, what on earth is wrong with you? And I said, we need to go to Los Angeles. And he said, what? I said, I don't know why. We need to go to Los Angeles. I don't know why.
Of all places.
I know, and that's what he said. We don't know anyone in Los Angeles. Why are we going to Los Angeles? And I said, I don't know. But that's where the church is. And he's like, the church on the mountain, because they were all sick of me, because everybody would ask me, do you know where the church on the mountain is yet today, Mum? Because this has been going on for a full year.
Did your son say that too?
So the church on the mountain?
Yeah,
Like Caleb, yeah.
That question.
Yeah.
I want to say something before we continue on that. Obviously, dreams a lot of times is just dreams, or they are just dreams, but it's actually something very interesting theologically, because one thing that you read is that revelations come, for example, when you have a person that her soul is very well disposed, she's in the state of grace, she's in the faith, and is a very balanced person, and God needs to reveal something to that person. And, many times God will reveal something very clearly, like with an apparition or something. But it is said that when there is some indisposition in the person, don't take offense, but what I mean to say is, if the person is very distressed, for example, or, the soul is not at peace for some reason, and is not able to receive those things, a lot of times God sends dreams, so that in order, the dream is kind of like a way where God can communicate to the soul when the soul is indisposed. And for example, they say that of Saint Joseph, the reason why God revealed things to him in dreams was because Saint Joseph's soul was very distressed for what was going on with our Blessed Mother. And so there was that distress that was causing his soul to be not at rest. And that's why God revealed himself to him in dreams. So it's very interesting, it's...
Oh, it
makes sense.
I didn't know that. That's nice. That's actually nice. Yeah. Well, that's how my soul was at that time, I can assure you. Great distress. Distress. But my husband, who over the years had known when I said something like that after prayers or after a dream, did not question it. So that day we booked flights to Los Angeles, and we just decided that we would just go for, I think we only went like 5 days or something. I think that was about as much as we could afford. We didn't know where we were going to stay, so we kind of just looked on a website and, picked a random hotel, and picked this hotel, and we went, and we flew out to Los Angeles. And so we got into this hotel, and my husband says, well, where do you start looking for this church? I was like, I have no idea, but I trust in God. He'll tell us. So every day my children called me. Obviously, we spoke to them every day, but every day we would get the same call. Have you found the church yet? No, not yet. So on the Sunday that we were due to fly home on the Monday at lunchtime.
Was it only you and your husband that went to LA?
Just myself and my husband.
Okay.
And we went to the local Mormon church, right? Because I said to him, well, we might as well find the nearest Mormon church. We might as well go to church, because I can't not go to church on a Sunday. I hadn't ever done that. I mean, we did go to the Catholic church, and beyond that, then this was us the next Sunday kind of thing. So we went to the Mormon church, and I said, no, this is not right, but I don't know what we're going to do. So we went back to the hotel room, and the children were all like that. One of my girls in particular, she kept phoning, and she's like that, Mum, you need to find this church. What are you going to do? You're coming home tomorrow? And I said, well, I'll do what I always do. Got down on my knees and prayed, and said, right, God, this is it. I have not found the church, and I don't know what else to do. So really, I said it the last time, but unless you slap me in the face with it, I'll need to take the children and we'll just go back to Mormon church. We'll just go back. I'll just take them back because I don't know what else to do. And I'm lost, and my family rely on me because, like, my husband was unwell at that time. Everyone relies on me, and I don't know what to do. And so I went back to sleep, and I had this dream. And I had a dream. In my dream, I was speaking to a man who I thought he was like a monk or something. And he took me into this beautiful garden and sat me down in this garden and said, "So tell me what's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, like, I don't think the Mormon church is true." And he says, "Well, what do you believe?" And so I was telling him everything I believed, and then he's telling me what he believed, and I says, "Well, you can't believe that because I believe that, and I'm Mormon, and you're not Mormon dressed like that." And he said, "No, I'm Catholic. I'm a Roman Catholic." And I remember, like, he was really kind of forceful in the way he spoke and everything, yet he was so kind. There was just something, like, about him. And then it was almost like I could feel my dream was ending, and I'm saying to him, "I need to know, like, I need to know your name. I've not got your name." And then my phone was ringing, and my phone was ringing and ringing. And when I answered the phone, it was in the middle of the night, and it was my children. And they'd phoned to say that, this bishop's wife had died. They had gone to Mormon church that Sunday, and they'd phoned to say that the bishop's wife had died. This was the one that my husband had this altercation with, but there's another story behind that, but I won't bore you with it. But that was to do with Catholicism, because she was Catholic when she was baptized Catholic and converted to Mormonism. But anyway, and so I said to my husband, "Oh my goodness, you guys have just interrupted this dream." So I told my husband, and he's like, "Who was it?" I says, I don't know who it was." And so I went back to sleep, pleading with God again, had the exact same dream, like a complete
No way.
repeat of the same dream. And I kept saying, as he was talking to me, "But I need to know, who are you? I need to know who you are." And he just kept telling me to stop worrying, just basically, stay calm and stop worrying. I says, "Well, obviously I'm worrying. I'm going home, and I don't know who you are, and who are you?" And then it was like, I woke up, and he never gave me his name. And I woke up, and I woke my husband up and said to him, "It's Mel Gibson's priest." And he was, "What?" And I
Wow.
said, "Mel Gibson's priest. That's who I was talking to." And he says, "What's his name?" And I says, he didn't tell me his name. He says, "Well, how do you know it's Mel Gibson's priest?" I said, "I don't know. But it's Mel Gibson's priest. I don't know how I know, but it's Mel Gibson's priest." And he's like,
Wow.
"What?" And I says, "Look, Google Mel Gibson's priest and see who he is." So this is like,
God, here you see that God uses everything to bring souls to God.
yeah,
Soccer, Mel Gibson, Google.
oh, right. And I'm like, so we Google Mel Gibson's priest. Now, honestly, this was actually the first time, the one and only time this came up when we Googled it, because we Googled it loads of times afterwards and we couldn't get it. But when we Googled Mel Gibson's priest on this occasion, up came this Mel Gibson's church in Mulholland Highway in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like that to my husband, "Look, it says there's a church here." So my husband goes all the way down to the car to get the GPS that we had in the car to put in this address on the GPS to see where it was. And what is like that? "I don't believe this, Margaret. I don't believe it." The church was like, 5 minutes away from where we were staying.
Wow.
And we're like, what? We had booked a hotel in Agoura Hills, which is where Mel Gibson's church is. Like,
Wow.
we had randomly, and my husband had spent all the time moaning at me when we were going to the hotel because it was miles and miles and miles from the airport. "What did you book this hotel for?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, just we booked it now." So we packed our cases. This was all about 6 o'clock in the morning, so we decided to make sure that everything was packed. We had all our cases packed and said, right, let's just go. Let's just wait till it's a decent hour and let's just go drive up and see what it's like. And so we're driving up and my husband's saying to me, well, are you going to ask to speak to the priest or what? And I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to say to this priest. He's going to think this mad Scotswoman. Like, you know, I can't tell the priest I dreamt of you. And I'm saying, my husband's like that. Do you know what he looks like? And I said, yeah, he's a wee fat man. He's a wee fat man with a brown habit on, you know, like with a hood. Like Robin Hood, do you imagine? Type, like Friar Tuck. That's what I get. Like, I was thinking, like, that was the only way I could think to describe him. And he's like, well, that's not a priest. I went, well, I don't know, but that's what he was like. That's what he was like. And so we drove up and we got to the church and we saw, obviously, there's all signs outside that say private property. Well, we got to the address and there was signs that says private property, huge gates up, a security and everything. So I says, well, we can't go in there. And my husband's like, what do you want to do? And I says, I'll just turn around and go back. If God wants us in, I says, no, turn around at the bottom of the road and we'll say a prayer. So we said a prayer together and we asked God that if it was his will, that we be able to get in and speak to this priest. And when we turned the car at the bottom of the road, finished our prayer, turned the car at the bottom of the road and drove back up, there was no security on and the gate was lying wide open. Wow. So we drove up and got into the car park and security came running down and I was wearing a scapular that someone had got me years ago, which the bishop's wife had told me in a sacrament talk in front of the whole congregation that I shouldn't be wearing Catholic things, but I continued to wear it. So security saw the scapular, I think, and said, are you just here for the Mass? So we just said, yes. And
I knew that Our Lady had something to do with the whole story. Now that you bring up the scapular, I'm like, oh, okay, now everything makes sense.
Right. Well, I didn't know at that time what scapular was. I just wore it.
Yeah.
So we went in and it was just this tiny chapel and Father Procopio was there offering Mass and there were a couple of other people there. But at that point, to be honest, I didn't even see Father. We went in and it was just, I don't know, it's even hard for me. I get emotional even now thinking on it. Just this, like, overwhelming, I just don't even know how to describe it, feeling of I'm home. Just, this is it. This is it. And the feeling of reverence was just like, I don't know, like just felt like really like I felt like my whole body was on fire. That's how I felt. Mm-hmm. And my husband and I knelt down and the two of us actually had like tears streaming down our faces. We didn't understand a word of it because it was all in Latin. Mm-hmm. And it was like it didn't speak to our heads, but it spoke to our hearts is the only way to describe it. And mm-hmm. So we both, people were obviously, Mass had started when we went in and people were obviously, there was only about, I think, 4 people. And then, so we just stayed kneeling. To be honest, I don't think my legs could have actually lifted me anyway at that point. I just felt like, just that feeling of I don't even want to stand here. I just felt like I was in the presence of God is how I felt. And so when the Mass ended, my husband got up and Robert said, I'm going to go get someone and ask if we can speak to the priest. And so I said, that's fine. So I just stayed kneeling, and Robert went away and asked if somebody could speak to the priest. And Robert came back and he said to me, yeah, they're going to get him. He said, but I don't know how this will be him because, like, priests are dressed in black, in case you haven't noticed. And so I just stood up, and Father Procopio came out. And as you know, I don't know if you've ever seen any pictures of him, but he came out and there he was, dressed in brown. And I just did not know what to say to him. And my husband, he started sobbing because this was just exactly as I had described him. Exactly as I had described him. And Father said he saw the state that we were both in, but I think probably in particular me. And he said he wanted to speak to me, and he just took me by the arm and we went out. And he says, come out, come into my garden. And of course that set the two of us off. And he said, oh, what's wrong? Are you Catholic? And I said, no, I'm Mormon and I'm lost. And Father just, he said, come, sit down. And he said, right, you could see that we were upset. And when my husband's just like you described him. And Father Procopio was like, what's this? And I said, I saw you in a dream last night. And not once did he question it. He asked me to describe the dream. And I said to him, you took me into this garden, this is where you took me. And you told me everything I needed to know. And you kept telling me about the Catholic faith, and I kept telling you, but this is what I believe, and I'm Mormon. And I said, and then I told him, I've been having this recurring dream for a year that I was to go to the church in the mountain. I said, but this isn't really in a mountain. And then he says, well, this is the Santa Monica Mountains here. And he says, but come with me. Have you got a car? We said, yeah. And we went into the car, and only when we were in the car, did he say, right, just drive up this road. And so we went further up the hill, or further up the mountain, I guess, to the very top. And there, up at the top, was what at that point, I mean, obviously it's built now, but was where Mel Gibson was building his new church, was building the actual church.
Wow.
And out of the church walks this man with a Glasgow Celtic football top on. Right, to which we were just ending ourselves laughing. And he's like that, and we're like, that Celtic top up here at the top of the mountains, like, what are the chances? And he's like that, am I good Irish Catholic? And we said, I says, my sons and my husband are season ticket holders at Parkhead. And we got talking, and anyway, turns out he was Mel's brother-in-law, and he was really in charge of the building works of the chapel. So Father Procopio had asked me some other stuff and took us all round the whole of the chapel, and then gave me a Baltimore Catechism, and we sat and we talked, and he said, so what do you believe? And so I told him, and then he's like, that's crazy, I didn't know Mormons believed this. And because there was so much of what we believed that actually had been distorted in such a way, but was still, exactly like you said earlier, was recognisable as Catholic. But obviously we didn't know that. And so Father gave me the Baltimore Catechism, and I said, we need to go, we're going to miss our flight now. And told him all about it, and everything. And he gave me the Baltimore Catechism, said to read it, gave us a missal, gave me his email address and his phone number, and said, well, God didn't pluck you out of Scotland for nothing. So just, trust in him and do God's will. And so with that, we literally flew back to Scotland. By the time we had touched down in Scotland, I had read the Catechism cover to cover, because thankfully it was a long flight.
Yeah.
So I had read the Catechism, and I said to my husband, well, that's it. We need to be Catholic. This is it. This is what's for us. And so when we came back, we changed our very first family home evening back. We started teaching the children from the Catechism.
Oh man, this is such a good story.
I feel like I'm taking up all your time now, which is unfair.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm basking. It's really great.
Oh dear. So basically we came home, and this is where I was grateful for the things that I had learned in Mormon church, like, how to teach your family, like the faith and things like that. So we just used the Catechism, and so they would give you, you always had an activity with your family home evening. So with our activity became things like everybody got one of the corporal works of mercy, for instance, and they had to do something, and they had to, during the week, we challenged them to learn something or do something. Those kind of things we did to get them to know and to learn at least the basics of the faith. And that all coincides. Sorry.
Sorry, just want to make a note here, a comment about what we were saying. A priest used to say to me, about people that find the truth like that. He would say, it's not that they find it in the false religions, it's that they find it in spite of the old false religions. And something that he would say is this. He would say, of course, that there is, you could say, some truth in lies, because the devil, you have to use something real. A lie is a combination of reality with falsehood. And you, for any lie, you have to say something real. Otherwise, you can't say anything. For example, if you say the elephant is purple, the elephant is a real concept. That the elephant is purple is a lie, but you always have to use something real to say it. And there is a distinction here that needs to be made, because one of the things that came out in Vatican II was they said that all religions have some goodness in it, and that is an evil thing to say, because when you have goodness mixed with falsehood, what you get is falsehood.
That's right.
But the thing is, the things that are good, they are Catholic. They are not in the false religions. It's just things that are Catholic that false religions take, and they mix that with falsehood. But it's just something interesting, and that's true. I mean, every false religion has to use something from the Catholic faith, some concept at least, because otherwise everything would be false and everything would be evil, and no one would go for that. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's fine. Actually, that's an interesting point, because Caleb and I were talking about that the other evening, because I had actually asked him the question of, why do so many priests concentrate on Vatican II? Why do we care what they did? And he's like, Mum, you can't say that. Of course we care. And he was explaining exactly what you've just said. And he said, sometimes you just think too much like a convert, because it didn't matter to me. But I do understand that now. So I'm glad that you made that point, because it is such a valid point.
I want to say something about Caleb. He used to be in the seminary with me. For a couple months. He was lucky enough to have me there only for a couple months. But this was during the summer. He had just come to the seminary a couple months ago, and as you said, he's a pretty recent convert. And I would be sitting in my room trying to study, and here I would hear the knock on the door, and I'm like, oh no. And I'd open the door, and there's Caleb with the book of philosophy or theology, and he's like, oh, Reverend, so this and that, and he'd come with a question, and I'm like, okay, and answer the question. He would always come up to me with like the most difficult questions in theology.
I know.
Like, we're studying philosophy. He's just studying philosophy, like the basic books. And he would, those questions would come up that you're supposed to study like 3 years later. And
Yeah.
literally, he actually asked me like some of the most difficult questions. I remember one of the most difficult questions are, the teachings about grace. How does grace works? It's such a huge mystery. And we were talking about that. And I would be, okay, well, this is how it is. But then how this, well, this and that. But I don't understand. And I'm like, well, it's a mystery, And it's not that you don't say that there is no answer. There is an answer, but it's beyond our understanding. Like, I mean, you say the answer, and then if you want to go further into that, it's like, it doesn't fit your brain. I mean, this is the answer. It's not like you're saying, oh, we can talk about that. No, we can. And we studied it, but it's like, you'll never
have the answer.
you'll never get the full understanding of it, because it's something that is divine. It's like beyond our understanding. So, but anyways, that was a big thing. He would come and ask me questions.
Yeah.
And then he would come and say, this is the last one today. And I was like, okay, all right.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we would just try and like teach the children from the catechism, but we also, and again, like I said earlier, realizing how much God had actually, it was almost like I can now join the dots that I couldn't join then, because a few years prior to that, we had put our children into Catholic school. We'd taken them out of the school they were in, and we'd put them into a Catholic school. And we had done that because I wasn't happy with the way things were going. And I thought that Catholic schools would have a better standard of morals and things. So I had taken my children out of school and put them into Catholic school. And I actually kind of had a funny little story about that. Caleb will be not liking this one, but when I went up for the first parents' evening, and I went to see Caleb's teacher, and Caleb has always been one of these, it's a love-hate relationship they have with him. They either love him or they're like, get this boy out of my class. But so I went to his teacher, and I'm thinking, what am I going to get for Caleb? And she said, I have to tell you such a funny story, Mrs. Armour. She said, Caleb's just been a delight in the class. She said, he knows everything, asks questions constantly. She said, but in religion, she said, this boy knows everything. He knows the answer to everything, knows the answers to things I don't know the answer to. She said, so I went to see the head teacher when we were preparing stuff for the parents' evening. She said, and I just said to the head teacher, I'm so excited. I've found us a priest. And she said, a priest, she says, boy in my class definitely is going to be a priest. And she says, who is it? She went, Caleb Armour. And she went, I hate to tell you, he's never going to be a priest, he's Mormon. And she's like, I'm so disappointed. I thought I had found myself a priest. So when Caleb came home the other Christmas, we were up at the school, and she was there, and I was able to say to her, like, is that seminary? Remember, he thought he was going to be a priest. But yeah, so but God was obviously working in us, so we had moved the children, albeit to an Novus Ordo Catholic school.
For those who don't know them, Caleb actually joined the seminary.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, no worries. So the children were already in Catholic school, so that kind of, I suppose, helped a little bit. But anyway, I contacted Father Procopio and said, look, we need to find like a Latin Mass here where we don't know where to begin. So we looked around and we couldn't find anything. Then eventually we discovered that there was a Society of Pius X in Glasgow. So we went to the society, and we went in, obviously, 10 of our children were there with us at that point. And, they were very welcoming. And, just something wasn't sitting right with me. And I didn't know what it was. So they offered to do catechism classes, and I declined and said no, I wanted to go and speak to Father Procopio again. So I said to my husband, look, I don't know what it is. There's something, I'm not being told something, and I don't know what I'm not being told, but I can't come here either. And by this time, everybody's like, oh, your mum's gone crazy, but whatever, we've come this far. So we, believe it or not, by this time, this had happened in April, this time we were round about the June. We flew back out to Los Angeles with some of our children. We took some of the children with us, and we flew back out to Los Angeles, and I said to Father Procopio, look, there's something you're not telling me. I've gone to the Society of Pius X, and he said, well, he asked me what was different, and I said, I don't know, but I feel like you're holding something back from me, and whatever you're holding back is why I can't go there.
Wow.
And Father said, do you know what sedevacantist is, what it means? And I said, no, not that clue.
Wow.
So he explained in very, very basic terms what it was. And I said, so we have to find a sedevacantist chapel then? And he said, yes. And I said, right, that's fine. I knew there was something. Mm-hmm. And he said, so do you have a problem with that? And I said, no, why would I have a problem with it? No, God's led me here. I'm not going to question God. Like, it's taken this long for us to get here. I said, but what I do know is we need to be received into the church. We need to be part. I can't not be. So Father asked us, the catechism questions, because he couldn't believe that in this short period of time that we'd read the catechism and what we had done with the children, and he spoke to the ones that were there. So it ended up that we flew out the rest of the children for 3 days and were received into the church. Wow. And that June, it was like that quick. And then we came back home to Scotland and couldn't find anything here. Because for weeks I was like searching, couldn't find anything. And then got back on my knees again and said to God, look, well, we can't just be here on our own. There's got to be somebody else here. And so back on the internet and looked again and managed to find a phone number for a lady in Norfolk. And a bit like maybe you with this conversation, I had it the one day, and for some reason I didn't call her that day.
We will continue Margaret's story on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to The Catholic Wire. If you have found this show helpful, please say a prayer for all our collaborators. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and share with your friends. For questions and comments, you may contact us at thecatholicwire.org.